I agree, Alex. I'm not keen on the idea, but I can work with it. I can work within. I couldn't work with tiny lamps. I can work with this.
Mhm.
We are but humble servants.
Sure we are.
Yeah, we do
Um,
awesome at that.
So, do I understand correctly that neither of you guys made it to the live session because you had jury duty and you just couldn't be there, right?
I had other
Right.
things. Yes,
You had other things.
I
Okay.
had a family thing.
As so many do. I understand completely. I don't want to dumb it down too much because I want you guys to get your own impression of it, but there was a lot of talk about fear versus desire, wanting to stay and wanting to go, both for right and wrong reasons, and how it's more complicated than just like these guys are wrong and
Yeah,
they're right.
I
Very
I
mixed bag.
I agree. That's kind of what I'm getting. I actually did listen to the session. I just wasn't there live.
the idea is that I'm pretty sure we've all been people who have thought about this story outside of this project
Yes.
in some capacity.
Yes.
So naturally, we have some of our own ideas of how things should go.
There's no doubt. And like I've said before, we all come to Tolkien from different angles with different worldviews and different beliefs and different things. And so we see different things in his stories. That's the applicability aspect of it. And so a lot of times it can be difficult because we focus on different themes and different pieces. It can be difficult to get all that in when you crystallize it in adaptation.
I have to imagine it's only going to get worse as time goes on, though, because we're not to the elves in Valinor yet. So
No.
most people really don't care about this part of the story. Like,
Well, I mean, we're here, so somebody cares.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
It's-
we care, but we
Right,
care.
it's gonna get more complicated.
It's only going
Once-
to get worse of this is my vision of how it's supposed to be. That's going to start being a lot more varied as we go on. So we have to choose our battles and accept what we can from what the execs say.
Yes.
If they really make decisions that are terrible, then we can go after them. But
Which we have.
I know. I'm notorious for that, actually.
Like, you can like see it as it's gonna get worse, or see it as like a beautiful opportunity to stretch ourselves imaginatively and creatively as people, and it's
Karina,
collaborating
you're-
and team.
You're stealing the beginning of what I had in mind for the talk in Maryland.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's good. Give them good ideas, because I don't know what I'm going to say.
Are we going to do a coin flip when we get there? Anyway.
We'll figure it out. But that's another time. It's already...
Yeah, absolutely.
on this episode, so.
Alex thinks it'll be easier when we get to the big stories and stuff. Maybe. All right. So, okay. So we need to...
Okay, Muriel. I like the idea of having her as a protagonist. The only hesitation I have it would be, are you familiar with the girl in the freezer phenomenon that people
No.
talk about? Comic.
Fridge.
No.
Where you fridge somebody?
Yes, where there's a character that exists only to die and be motivation or an interesting plot point for a character.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to ditch that completely because I think that there's a reason that that's a trend. It's useful. But I don't want her to be just like, oh, she's this really interesting character who then dies in a weird way and serves as a stepping point for a bunch of other characters about their story. It's a little flat. So if we can develop her in a way that makes her more than that, that would be.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know what I just thought of? Is this would be a great opportunity to pass the Bechdel test if we have female Avari rep having some kind of conversation with Muriel
And not talk about Finway.
and not talk about Finway. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. It'll be our first opportunity, probably only opportunity this season. Just
That's
saying.
not true.
Yeah, it's true. Okay.
We might
So what
have.
are they going to talk about?
Well, they would have to talk about the decision whether to go or stay, and having that decision be based more on is it more important that we stay here than have this fantastic life over there?
The other thing is that Finway spent a good chunk of episode 2 kind of moping around going, wow, I really want to move here, but my girlfriend's never going to go for it.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like episode 3 should be Muriel kind of going, wow, I really want to marry Finway, but I'm not entirely sold on this trip we have to take.
Well, there goes the Bechdel test idea.
No, but it doesn't because what she would then be talking about would be, can I leave this place?
Hmm.
And
Poor
yes,
man.
it's going to be for a man, so it might not pass.
It'll be close. It'll be almost there. All right.
If we're mirroring Finway's motivations, I don't feel like we're reducing her motivations.
Yes, I agree. Okay. So if we have her talking to Miss Avari representative, here's my biggest problem with Avari representative, female Avari representative being Arwen's mentor that we never see, except maybe in a flashback somewhere. I feel like that just doesn't feel. It doesn't. Yeah. There's no connection between them.
Right. There's a loss of organic history to it. She's really just plucked out of the story in this very early spot and dropped in the story at the very end.
Yeah.
And apparently did nothing in between of interest. And if she did do something of interest, then we have to write her through all the stories. It's almost as bad as what Tolkien had to do with Galadriel when he realized she was a character in the First Age and had to go back and make her awesome in the First Age when she didn't really play a role.
Right.
Yeah, he rewrote that story 4 different ways for a reason. It wasn't working.
Yeah. Well.
What you're saying is we would be following in the long, storied Tolkienian tradition of having to go back and write in a whole story for somebody to make them awesome?
Yeah,
trying to shoehorn women into the story.
Shoehorn such a strong phrase, but yeah, maybe a bit.
Alex says that he can't remember who came up with it, but calling her Nerwin works. Yeah, okay.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah, okay. That's the name is not the point of objection.
Right, and I am fine with there being a female Avari spokesman in this scene. In this episode, I'm fine if we have one of our main Avari characters happen to be a female spokesman.
So
the problem is making her show up in Rivendell 3 ages from now.
Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but we're not in Rivendell. And when we start our frame story, she's not either.
Right, so we have her flashbacks of her in Rivendell in Arwen's memory.
Right.
Which, if Arwen's going to be doing flashbacks to get a character, it should be her mom.
Right, I agree.
So the whole thing is a little
Yeah. So why even have those? Why even have the? Because you're going to have flashbacks anyway. The idea that somehow this connects Arwen to. It doesn't. Okay. So, but what I'm going to suggest is that we continue. Why did they want her in the first place? I don't even know anymore.
I can tell you. Arwen's mentor was an excuse for Arwen to be dealing with the grief of the loss of her mother 400 years after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's been 400 years since Mom left, so why is Arwen all of a sudden going around mopey, going, "Wow, it's so sad here. Let me just stare off into the middle distance of Lorien." And the answer was supposed to be that someone else that she cares about was leaving now, and it brought up the old grief, and why do elves have to leave, go to Valinor, and I don't get it. So I'm just going to be mopey until deal with this.
I have a question. I bet Marie knows the answer. What do we know about Muriel's family? Does she have any? I don't know.
We don't know.
About that.
So it's whatever we want. It's whatever.
Can we invent a sister for her?
Sure.
I mean, that would be a good reason for them to be talking. It would be a close familial connection. They might.
But do we want Muriel's? But do we want Muriel's sister to be Arwen's mentor?
You broke up a little.
I said, do we want Muriel's sister to be Arwen's mentor?
It makes more sense than random Avari elf chick because at least they're related by blood, sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, and
Arwen's are related to every single elf in Middle Earth by blood.
Yes, Elrond's children really are related to pretty much everybody, so there's not an issue there. But they're not related to the Avari. So the only way to tie in an Avari is if the Avari in question happens to be a blood relative of Finwë, Elwë, or Ingwë.
Yeah.
Or Muriel in this case, but that's fine.
Or Muriel, yeah. I mean, if we did invent a sister for Muriel, we could come up with a fun name, which is always a bonus, and it might kind of, in a way, mirror random elf female mentor for Arwen. They're not like sisters, obviously, but it could be a similar relationship dynamic where they're close and there's two women. I don't know.
It could be cousins.
I haven't really thought it through, so this might be a bad idea.
It could be not the same person, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be the same person for it to be like a strong connection in our brains. Humans are pretty good at picking up on patterns.
Okay.
I think.
Alex says that the mentor is solving a problem that won't come up if we don't mention the timeline. I feel that if anything, we can point to the recent existence of the shadow in Dol Guldur as causing this. We know that Galadriel was at least partially involved in the situation, so.
Yeah, I'm actually fine kind of leaving the mentor character out until we have a very good, clear reason to use her and know who she is. It's a lot of flashback and explaining things that don't need to be explained.
Yeah.
And problematic. Also, we were specifically told multiple times not to introduce unnecessary new characters into the story, for the obvious reason that this story has enough characters.
So the question becomes, do we ignore them on this because they've been going on about this for 3 episodes?
Right, but they haven't actually, I haven't heard yesterday's session yet, but they haven't actually told us we can just not do that yet.
We can always shoehorn her in later. Okay.
What I mean is, we could, if our frame story does not deal with this random mentor person, then it just doesn't deal with her. Yeah. The frame story 3 episodes from now might deal with it, but if we don't do it, we don't do it.
What's the worst that could happen?
That our story is confusing as to why Arwen is more than the mother.
No. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the worst. And I think we can probably find a way around that without introducing this other character. I mean,
well, as I've told Dave Cale before, he can fire me.
We need to fire who?
I said yeah, I mean they can dock our pay or fire us.
Right.
So okay, all right, let's move on. Half an hour later. Actually, I'm gonna set up a quick break here. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to like and share the videos. That would be awesome. Feel free to comment down below. I've noticed that people have done that already. I will be back in a minute or two.